If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. Hi, I'm Khalid Mohammed with the Command 11 Sit Rep. Today we've got me and S2 with you. We've got an interesting show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about the UN General Assembly, some of the stuff that's been happening with the UN General Assembly, and there's going to be some interesting things that we discuss with regards to this. Before we jump into that, S2, let's do a quick roundup on what's been happening around in the past week.
Just the last day.
I mean, today we're going to talk about General Petraeus, and we're going to talk about al-Jolani, and we're going to talk about the different things that have been broken in the news today. But how many conspiracy theories do you think are running now? I mean, the other day, Chris and I, on one of the shows, we said, we've run out of conspiracy theories. I think in the last 2 weeks, we've had about 50 different conspiracy theories pop up.
Yeah, well, I've got a T-shirt that says I need a new set of conspiracy theories because all mine have been proven true. So they're not conspiracy theories anymore. I mean,
now we've got some really interesting stuff going on.
And Trump, with his address to the UN today, he pretty much laid it all out there.
Trump went nuts. I mean, he laid everything out. He challenged the UN flat out.
I was laughing.
But S2, I'm going to have you do the conflicted question, and then we'll kick off the show.
All righty. Here we go. But before we get started, everybody, please hit the like button or the thumbs up and leave comments so that we have engagement statistics, and it helps to push the algorithm and push our show out to other people that may not know about us. So here we go. Conflicted question. You are at a business convention 1,200 miles away from your family when an EMP goes off and stops the entire civilization in its tracks. None of the means of communications or transportation work, and the banking system and all of the comforts of modern civilization are broken, setting the entire country back hundreds of years. And a few hours before all of the shelves are empty, would you stay local or head for home? Whatever your decision, what would you buy with the $300 and why?
Oh, now that's a good question.
And we'll answer this question at the end of the show. And in the meantime, back to you, Khalid.
All right. Let me get S2 up on stage here with me. Okay. We've got some interesting stuff to discuss. I mean, we've had the UN General Assemblies going on, and we have had some really fun things happen in the last couple of days that have not only shocked a lot of Americans, but have shocked a lot of people around the world. Let's do just a quick roundup and just touch on some of the stuff that's happened. I mean, on Sunday, al-Jolani arrived in New York. Al-Qaeda returned to America with glory and with pride, because after 9/11, there was never a thought that that Al-Qaeda would ever be allowed back in the U.S. And now you've got an Al-Qaeda commander inside the United States being given a diplomatic treatment, which has got to, it's got to insult everybody who lost their lives on 9/11, all the families, all the soldiers that fought for the last 20 years. It's a slap in the face. I mean, if you think about it, S2, you served as well. I mean, let me get your opinion on this guy being in the country.
Well, I would say al-Qaeda being back in the country and not hitting a single building was probably the biggest feat that they could ever accomplish. I've said this all along. I think the reason he was here was, or the reason he was allowed to be here is because Trump wanted to keep him close. He knows who he is. He's not a fool. And we have to have somewhat of a relationship with Syria. And I think really what Trump is trying to do is to keep his enemies close, and so he can get some kind of a temperature gauge on what they will or won't do at some point in time. That's the only explanation I have for that.
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, that's an interesting way to go. We'll pick this one back up when we move in. We had Petraeus interview Jolani. That has infuriated a lot of people. We had the Sims discovered in New York today that S2 and I were talking about before the show, that we'll clue you in on the discussion that we were having. It's just been an interesting couple of days that America has seen. I don't know if anyone caught the story. We put it out on our X. Donald Trump's helicopter. On Saturday, someone fired a laser pointer. Yeah, a laser pointer into the pilot's eyes of Marine One. The guy was arrested. He was apparently mentally handicapped because he was talking to himself while he was doing it when Secret Service arrested him. But there's a lot of things going on right now in the U.S. that are of a lot of concern, and we'll get into them one by one as we move forward. I want to pick up on something that we talked about in the last episode with Chris. This is a doctor at a major hospital here in the U.S. We asked him, what would happen if the hospitals were hit. And he said to us that, the National Guard is all trained doctors and nurses. So if the National Guard rolls out and has to be emergency services because the hospitals are down, they're all doctors. But if you kill the National Guard, then there's nothing left. And that's something that we've been talking about a lot. And tomorrow we'll pick back up again with the Long War series. While I'm at it, if you are not a member, if you're not signed up for Survival Dispatch, please go to our Substack, sign up. If you like our content, we'd really appreciate if you signed up for a membership, paid membership. You'll get 2 months free for $74.99. It's $7.99 a month. If you get the entire year in advance, it's $74.99. You'll get early access to all of JJ Morris's survival videos. You will get 2 months free in your subscription, and you will also have access to all of the links and all of the material that goes into putting our situation reports together. So
you will also get access to our crazy Signal channel.
Oh yeah, the Signal chat. I didn't mention it for the reason because a lot of people are gonna, if you're not used to getting that many messages on your phone, you'll have to get used to it, because 3,000 messages in a day is the norm, and you'll get a lot of messages. And it's, I think the other day we were all talking about pancakes and bacon. It's not that we just talk about intelligence and things that are going on in the US. It gets a little bit interesting in the conversations, but you get a lot of messages, and it's a really interesting group to be in. All of our guys are in there, and everyone's talking, everyone's sharing information and intelligence, and the sheer amount of knowledge you get out of that group is just unbelievable, and it's well worth the price. And we really enjoy what goes on in that group, and it's if you sign up with Survival Dispatch, then it's a good place to be. One more pitch for you. Carnival is looking for social media influencers. So if you've got a social media account and you've got a good number of followers and you have a high number of engagement, if you send an email to support at survivaldispatch.com, we'll put you up to Carnival, and we will ask them if they're interested in giving you a care package and signing up as an influencer with them. It's good stuff. I'm waiting for my first package to arrive here in Pakistan. From what I've heard, it's just fantastic stuff. The food is outstanding. It's very healthy, and it's everything I've heard about is fantastic. I'm just waiting for my first delivery to come. Let's jump into this. Okay. We were talking about David Petraeus interviewing al-Jolani, and here's what my problem is. I'm going to ask you before I play the video as well. But anyone who's seen this video, Petraeus was head of CENTCOM, and he was director of the CIA while Jolani was part of ISIS and al-Qaeda. From 2006 to 2011, Jolani was actually arrested during Petraeus' time as head of CENTCOM. And the way that Petraeus is talking to him, he sounds like a fangirl. I mean, literally, he sounds like a fangirl when the way he's talking to him. And I really don't understand where someone like David Petraeus, with his background and with his ability and his knowledge, why he would be talking like this.
This next one is about you personally. How are you holding up under all this pressure? Are you getting time to do some thinking? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Again, I've been there, and it is so very, very hard. And your many fans, and I am one of them, we do have worries. So this next one is
S2. I have to ask. I have to ask. I'm a fan. I have worries. What do you have to say? Because you served, and I mean, I've always worked intelligence. I want to hear your feelings on listening to the former CIA director talk like this.
Petraeus is like a lot of other generals during the GWAT era that would say one thing to your face and then say another behind your back, which is one of the reasons I think, if I'm not mistaken, he got fired. Yeah, I have no words to say anything more about that guy. In fact, I wouldn't even give him any more attention because he's just, I'll call him John Brennan 2.0. How's that?
But I've got a question with this. Okay, you've got David Petraeus on one side talking about Jolani, being a fan of Jolani. You've got Tom Barak, who is the ambassador to Syria and Turkey, who is fawning over Jolani and saying we have no other options other than the Jolani government in Syria. And then you have Mike Huckabee, who was speaking in Israel and talking about how Israel's military is more moral than the U.S. military. What has Trump done in putting two ambassadors like this into a position where you would think that they have sworn an oath to al-Qaeda as compared to working for the United States?
Well, I'm going to pull a religious aspect of this into this conversation because there's been talk over the last 10 years about Christians and Islam coming together to form a new religion called Chrislam. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. A lot of evangelists have talked about it. But that's kind of what I see going on here is this pulls that spiritual aspect into the conversation. Other than that, I really am just kind of beside myself with these turn of events. But like I said, Petraeus, he's like a lot of other generals during the GWAT period that have turned on the United States, and that's about all I have to say about that guy.
Yeah, well, Petraeus was fired because he had an affair with a New York Times reporter. If you remember, that was the reason for his termination, that he had an affair with a New York Times reporter who ended up writing his book. That was why he was shown the door, and then he was made CIA director after that, which was really interesting to us. But I'm really surprised, and I'll give you my take on this because this is really surprising for us. We've always seen the U.S. military and U.S. intelligence being very focused in achieving their goals. when you have a known terrorist that you put in jail yourself, I'm talking about David Petraeus. You put al-Jolani in jail yourself in 2006, and at that time he was a member of al-Qaeda. He then joined ISIS while he was in prison. In 2011, when he was released, Baghdadis was so impressed with his ability to kill American soldiers that he promoted him to Syria and made him a commander. Listening to David Petraeus talk like this, it really raises a lot of questions for me in what's happened to the U.S. military. And I'm saying this from the point of view of, I've seen a lot of posts on X lately where inside of the U.S. military, a lot of liberalism and a lot of anti-Americanism has started. We saw some pictures from the graduation at West Point where people actually brought a communist flag with them to graduation. And whatever is going on inside the military, and this is for Pete Hegseth, if this is going to go on inside the U.S. military, no matter what you do in terms of training, in terms of getting the military stronger, if this mentality is going to become pervasive inside of the U.S. military, you're going to see a much significantly weaker military operating underneath whoever is Secretary of Defense.
I would fire every damn one of them. I'd fire every damn one of them because here's my philosophy. I would rather have 5 sharp, well-trained guys than 10 idiots.
Yeah. But isn't that what Hegseth said? That there is so much bloat inside the Pentagon with generals that don't need to be in their positions that there's a need to clean up the Pentagon. Wasn't that one of Hegseth's statements?
Yeah, there's about 50 flag officers that need to be fired or retired, I should say. It just tell them you're taking retirement and send them on their way.
Yeah, because I mean, this cannot work. I mean, no matter what you try and do with I still remember the U.S. military when I was in the U.S. When I was graduating from college, I was actually thinking about joining the U.S. Air Force, and the only thing that kept me out of the Air Force was that my eyesight wasn't 20/20. And I couldn't fly. So I said, then what's the point of joining the Air Force if I can't fly? But that was a different military back then. This is 1990, and this is dating myself, 92 when I graduated from university. And back then I was ready to join the Air Force because I had so much respect and love for the military that for me, that was the place to go. Forget a regular job. I mean, the military was the place to go. Today, you couldn't pay me. You couldn't pay me enough to join the U.S. military with the kind of mentality that's going on. But S2, I want to ask you a question. As a former serving soldier, a serving officer, what do you think soldiers are thinking about the way Petraeus behaved and how al-Jolani's been received in the U.S.?
I've seen the way a lot of them have been reacting. They're just shaking their heads. I mean, General Flynn has probably been one of the most prolific talking about that.
Yeah.
They're just shaking their head. I mean, it's a complete slap in the face to every GWAT veteran that's still alive, and the families of the others that lost their lives.
What do you think? I understand your point that Trump's keeping al-Jolani close so he can see what he's doing and what he's trying to do, but don't you think at some point you've got to get your own soldiers in line, your own officers, your own ambassadors in line, that you serve the U.S. first. You're not a tool for propaganda. You're not someone.
What I said. That's what I said. They need to be all booted out.
What about the ambassadors? I mean, you've got
Trump changes those like he changes underwear. So yeah,
that's
them
true.
too.
That is true.
I mean, frankly, some of them, I think he sends them into exile by making them ambassadors.
Well, that is where you send the guy you don't like is to an ambassadorship. I mean, they just took the White House chief of appointments, I think he was, and they made him ambassador to India. I mean, is there more?
I would have made him ambassador to Vietnam.
Oh, that would have been an interesting one.
Some small country in the middle of nowhere that is just hot and shitty weather.
Yeah, that would have been a better one. But yeah, the ambassadorship has always been an exile position. It's just surprising to me. Okay. Yesterday, Donald Trump signed Antifa as a domestic terror organization, which is a great decision. Antifa has been nothing but trouble since the day they came on the scene. Making them a domestic terror organization means that you can now investigate every type of financing they have, who is working with them, who is supporting them. I should point out that last week in the European Union, Hungary also demanded that the European Union declare Antifa as a terrorist organization. So obviously, it's not just based in the U.S. It's spread out into many countries, and this is a good decision. I don't know if this is driven more by Charlie Kirk, or if it was done because Antifa is such a hostile organization towards everyone in the country. This is where, S2, you've got more understanding on Antifa, and you can give us a little bit of background as to how dangerous these guys really are.
Well, the ones that I've encountered aren't dangerous at all. In fact, some of them, the ones that I've had run-ins with, consider me to be armed and dangerous, and have told me so. But as far as, I'm sorry, what was your question again? I got sidetracked looking at the chat over here.
Oh, my question was, can you give us a little bit of background into Antifa? Because a lot of people don't understand what Antifa is and how dangerous they really are.
So Antifa was a group that was started back in the 1930s before World War II got into full swing. And they were essentially a homogenous group of anarchists, communists, and some other disaffected people that were against Hitler's rise. So they basically formed themselves a group to fight Nazis. That's kind of that history. But fast forward to today, they came here in the 1970s. They've been here for that long, and they've been causing all kinds of problems. They were part of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Almost every civil unrest thing that you've seen going on in the country, it has been fomented by them and their organizing efforts with young people in the colleges and even high schools, believe it or not. So that's a little history on them. And as far as them being dangerous, you do have some of them more dangerous factions, like Rose City Antifa out in I think it's Portland, Oregon, that they have been known to be extremely violent. And then you have members inside other factions that are not quite so violent, but out of all of the different cells out there, you could have one or two violent individuals in between. Some of the cells actually do have organization within them that makes them an organized, I would call them an organized crime organization. So that's one consideration there that we need to look at. Everybody keeps saying they're just an idea. Well, okay, yeah, they're an idea. So what?
Yeah, but an idea is an idea until they become dangerous, and then they become a problem you have to deal with. And that's been, I mean, al-Qaeda started off as an idea, and they turned into something extremely dangerous.
ISIS was an idea too. Hamas was an idea.
Yep. I mean, that's what my problem is my problem has always been, when you see the idea start to form, that's when you got to kill the idea. You don't let the idea turn into an ideology. Once it becomes an ideology, then it's impossible to stop.
The ideology was already there. It was already embedded. So you had some of the Marxists, you had some of the communists, you had actual true anarchists, which are not, they're not either communist or Marxist. They're people that just want to destroy. And some of them will even say that they want to reform the government in their own view. But the anarchists, actually, that's not what they want. They want no government.
Yeah,
they want just total chaos.
So it's like the BLM. It's like what happened during BLM and the riots then, when George Floyd went off, and you saw Portland turn into a Chaz state, and had all these areas where there was no entry. That was Antifa, right?
That was Antifa that did the autonomous zone, the Chaz zone. for as much as I've seen personally, BLM and Antifa pretty much remain separate groups. BLM never funded Antifa, as far as I know. Antifa does a lot of their own self-funding now. There was a time when George Soros did actually provide some funding for them, but then he reneged on a payment to Antifa, and they got really ticked off at George Soros about that. And you remember the time that Nancy Pelosi's house got attacked and they put pig blood all over the place and everything? Well, that
Yep.
was Antifa. That was Antifa that did that because Nancy Pelosi was in on it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now explain something to me. If once you've declared someone, and I don't know if with Trump's executive order, if Antifa becomes a domestic terror organization, or if it has to go through the same process the foreign terror organization goes through, where State Department has to put it to the Congress, and Congress has to vote for it. But assuming that with Trump's signature on the executive order declaring Antifa as a domestic terror organization, does that mean that you can now investigate them like you would al-Qaeda or ISIS?
No, they would have to be designated a foreign terror organization, which they are. They do
Right.
have ties. They do have ties overseas. So I forget what that group was right off the top of my head. I've had so much stuff going through my brain over the last week. It was that that tranny group out in Salt Lake City, something SLC.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing now is the radicalization of the LGBTQ trannies out there, and if they're and Antifa really kind of guards those folks. So if they've joined forces with them, the chances are very good that organization would provide funding to Antifa. So that organization is actually tied to a number of other organizations, but ultimately they're funded by a gentleman named Neville Singh, who is an American businessman who lives in China. So that's one foreign tie. The other foreign tie that's out there is they have what's called the International Antifa Defense Fund. That is a fund that is established overseas, but they will send money to wherever is needed to bail people out of jail, to provide lawyers for them, and things like that. And we'll even bring it back to the domestic side here. Kamala Harris admitted to setting up a bail fund for Antifa and BLM. So she's just as much a part of this investigation as anybody else. And when she made that statement on national television, they're not going to stop and they shouldn't stop, she was referring to Antifa.
Okay. How much? And you brought up the transgenders, but how much is Antifa working with the transgenders? Because we saw a lot of right after the Charlie Kirk assassination, we saw a guy named Destiny being paraded around. There was another guy, Harris something or other, that was also Antifa, and he was also paraded around. They were talking about following turning point events at every university. They were going to follow them everywhere they went and protest. How much linkage do you see between the transgenders, the radical transgenders that have been militarized, and 100%. Antifa now?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, early on, even before any of this happened, if you may recall, there have been things that went on in many different cities across the country where they were having these drag show things, or they've had incidences where men were walking into women's locker rooms at gyms and things like that, and Antifa was right there. So they're 100% linked. Okay.
Interesting. Okay, now let's jump to the one of the big stories of the day. This morning around, I think it was probably about 9:30 this morning, the Secret Service announced that they had found a network of 300 SIM servers with 100,000 SIM cards attached that could disrupt telecom in a 35-mile radius. Now, a lot of you will remember that we talked about this in some of our previous episodes, where we said your 911 system would be brought down because it would be flooded with fake calls. This is how those fake call systems work. The interesting part here for me is, and S2 and I were talking about this before we went on air, The interesting part for me here is the timing of this whole thing happening. There's no way that they didn't know that this was going on. For it to happen right during the UN General Assembly raises a lot of questions, and it makes a lot of people wonder whether this was a planned sting to happen at this point in time, or if this just was something that was running a different way. S2, you and I were talking about this before the show. Take us through this. How does this kind of a server system work? I mean, it's a closed loop. It's intercepting calls and messages. The special agent in charge for the Secret Service in New York said that they could generate 3 million messages a minute?
Yep. So basically what this is it's you would have to have SIM cards obviously installed in these SIM servers. They're called SIM banks actually. It's what a lot of these robocall companies use. So whenever you get these robocalls and they just come one after the other, they'll use these. But essentially what they can be used for is what we call DDoS attacks, which they can clog up a cellular network to the point of where it's unusable. Just the way you would at any other IT setting where you're shooting ping commands at a target and you just overwhelm the network stack and it can't talk. What? We got a troll in here. Who's submitting my I can't even pronounce it. It says al-Jolani is cool. Dude, you gotta go.
He's gone.
But
he's gone.
Yeah. So that's one of the primary ways this can be used. I was one of those guys that was I was a freaker back in the day when we started, just when the internet came out. I was using internet modems. I was shotgunning internet modems and going out and doing war driving on different connections that I could find on different IP blocks out there. So I was fully capable of actually running DDoS attacks from a mobile unit. So they also can be used to generate untraceable phone numbers. So this was one of the other things that this was used for. They discovered was that it was used for the swatting attacks that were being conducted against, I think, some of the influencers, as well as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Rick Scott out of Florida. So by virtue of the fact that they found that, I don't know how they got that information. It must be their forensic analysis that showed them that information. But my thought is, this was already in place. It was already there. They knew it was there. And I don't know why they went in and just captured it. They should have gone overhead with the spy plane and captured all of the network traffic with a dirt box and be able to trace that traffic, because they could trace where that traffic was going had they done that. So
explain
this just looks like
the dirt box. Explain the dirt box, because a lot of people won't understand what a dirt box is. Explain the dirt box.
Yeah, the dirt box is a device that's attached to the front of a low-flying spy plane that's used to collect cellular traffic data. I was at an event several years ago with some they were all high-profile people, with congressmen and senators and people like that. But the federal government had one of those flying overhead, and I spotted it, and I came in and told people that this is what they were doing. It kind of turned the whole thing into a shit show. But this is what they do. This is what they could have done had they really wanted to find the people who were doing this. So
that's where my question comes up. That's where my question comes. Because the question, I mean, a lot of people after this thing was found were pointing the finger at Iran, saying this was Iran. And it was really interesting that it was found right after in the country.
I don't think Iran had anything to do with it.
This looks local, doesn't it? This looks like this was one of our own local intelligence agencies that was doing this.
Well, could be the local one, could be the international one, could also be a certain technical wing of a certain other government. Which is highly possible.
How could this be used in? Because we've talked about this in the Long War series. How does this get used in a terror attack?
They can actually take down cellular networks with this. So by overwhelming the cellular systems, which they had this in 5 different locations, basically forming a ring around New
Yep.
York's cellular infrastructure. And they could go in and they could just start dumping calls onto the network and make it unusable. First responders wouldn't have use of their cellular networks. Hospitals wouldn't have use of their cellular networks. There's a lot of data that goes back and forth, particularly if they're in contact. But that's not right either. It would impact things to a point of where, so banks use cellular networks for financial transaction data movement. There's all sorts of things out there that nobody ever thinks about that's attached to cellular networks. And if they flooded that network with a bunch of bogus traffic, they just flood it and it shuts down, it'll disable. And at some point, I believe some of these actual servers in these cellular towers, you'll see the big boxes that are like a couple yards away from the cellular towers. Well, those contain some of the servers in there. And a lot of the times that communications equipment, when it gets overwhelmed, it will shut down and reboot itself.
Okay. But here's again, I'm going to come back with a question because today I'm hosting, so I get to ask questions. When you look at a system like this, can it be used to capture information as well? Like, for example, the network they found in New York, 35 miles. Could it be used to capture all kinds of data and all kinds of telephone calls that are going through that network as well?
You would have to clone the SIMs, but that's fairly easy to get as long as you can get the IMEI number that may be traveling through the air, and you can grab that. You can take that IMEI number and you can clone that SIM so that, yeah, you can actually do eavesdropping on cellular calls.
Do you think that was one of the reasons why it was found at this point in time? Because if this was used for swatting, like we know it was used, do you think there was a reason that it was brought out at this point in time and not brought out when, you know, there wasn't a big event going on in New York City?
I don't really have an opinion on that. It just seems like it was a setup for some reason.
Well, the timing makes it look like a setup. I mean, look, you've had swatting calls have been going on. We've been tracking swatting calls since the end of last year. And all of a sudden now, right when the UN General Assembly is about to start, you find this huge network, and it's on the day that Trump is going to be in New York and speak at the UN.
So let's look at the events that happened during when Trump arrived today. Okay. Yeah. First thing that happens is they take down this SIM network.
Yep.
Second thing, Trump walks through the door. He goes to the escalator stops working. Yep. He goes up for his speech. His teleprompter stops working. My conspiratorial mind immediately goes to this. There was a message that was being sent.
Yeah.
By the UN. That we're listening to you. We're capturing everything, and we have control of the site, not you.
Do you think that's why Trump came out so aggressive against the UN during his speech then?
No, I think Trump was already going to come out aggressive before his speech. I think that was already a given.
Because I was looking at this whole thing. I've been following this whole thing all day from the SIM traffic to the escalator stop. I mean, they literally put their foot on the escalator and the escalator stopped running.
Yeah.
And before Trump came on stage at the UN, I think there was 2 other dignitaries where the teleprompter and the mic turned off while they were speaking. One happened to have the mic turn off when they were talking about Gaza.
So you have to consider that if they were using teleprompters, the speeches that they were going to give had to be submitted beforehand to convert it over to teleprompter speech. So whoever was controlling the teleprompters knew what Trump was going to say, and that would be the communications director for the UN General Assembly at that particular facility. So all of that information would have traveled upstream to the other folks that were there, the people that were in charge of the UN. So
Right.
they obviously, I said, this was a message being sent.
Okay. And Trump met with Zelensky. He met with al-Jolani. He met with I think it was 12 countries while he was at the UN. And he told Zelensky that he told the EU that if a Russian plane flies into over a NATO country, shoot it down. I don't know if you caught that statement.
Yeah, I did, and he's absolutely right. I mean, you could give him a warning, but he's basically trying to say, look, use common sense. He's trying to tell these countries that you are a sovereign country. He came in defense of sovereignty of every country. He used that word over and over and over again in his speech. And that's that's the message that he was sending, is that you countries that have been screwing around with this climate change crap and all of this other globalism crap, you're losing your sovereignty. And if you continue down this road, you're not going to be a country anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So you have the right to shoot down a plane that flies over your airspace. You can choose to warn them, or you can choose to shoot them down. It's your choice. But that's what he's telling them.
Just a question on your opinion. Do you think Putin is trying to force NATO to make a move on behalf of the Ukraine? Well, that's why he's flying these drones into these NATO countries. Why he's flying his planes over NATO countries? Do you think he's trying to force NATO to make a move?
I wouldn't think so, because everything that he's done so far has been in avoidance of conflict. It hasn't been necessarily to start conflict. It's been in reaction to, or he's been avoiding it. So I don't think that that's what he's trying to do. But then again, who knows what's going on in the minds of these people out there? Everybody's lost their minds.
Yeah, everyone's gone crazy. A question for you on the SIM infrastructure. Where do you get that kind of equipment? I mean, they were not using low-tech equipment. I mean, that was high-tech equipment they were using there. Where do you get that kind of equipment, and who can fund something like that? I mean, if let's take it out of the U.S. and say it's not a local intelligence agency.
Well,
putting that
first off, who can have that equipment is the question.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to be licensed to have that equipment, and you have to have a legitimate purpose for having it. So that in itself makes tracking that equipment very easy, because it generally comes from telecom suppliers. It's not something you can just go buy off the shelf somewhere.
No.
And I know that because I know that. We'll put it that way. It's just like cell phone jammers. You can go out and you can buy a cell phone jammer, but chances are the people that you buy it from, they're going to ask questions of like, do you have a license to have this? And if you don't have a license, they're not going to sell it to you.
Yep.
And yes, Doherty one, that equipment can be traced. It all has serial numbers on it, either within the BIOS or on the outside of the box. It can be traced, just like all of the SIM cards can be traced, which we found out that a good portion of those SIM cards came from a company called Mobile X.
Yeah. Now the question becomes, how much of this information is going to be released to the public? How much of this information do you think the Secret Service will release to the public? Because if we look at what happened with Charlie Kirk's assassination, the sheer number of conspiracy theories that just came out of that one assassination, do you think this is going to be handled the same way, that they're going to let a lot of people talk and put their own ideas out before they actually put kind of information forward?
They've already made the statement that this is an ongoing investigation. You know what that precludes, right?
Yeah.
We're not saying shit.
Yeah. My concern on this side is, when you've got equipment like that out in the market, you can do a lot of damage with that. Where we're having a problem understanding this is, there was a lot of equipment there, and they said that not only were 100,000 SIM cards installed, but they had space for another 500,000 SIM cards to be put into that system, into that server deck. This is something you can scale as far as you want it to scale, right?
Yeah. And here's the funny thing is, I don't know where they were getting their SIM cards from, but the SIM cards are traceable too.
Yeah.
So if the Secret Service comes back and says we can't trace these things, I'm going to call bullshit.
Yeah, and we half expect that to be the answer from the Secret Service, that we don't know where this came from, because and I'm going to bring this up because I talked about this last week as well. We had two incidents where the Secret Service let people get very close to Trump. Once at the DC restaurant when Code Pink was able to protest, and a protester got very close to Donald Trump. And then in the UK, you had two things happen. One, a protester got very close to the motorcade, and we wondered what the Secret Service was doing. And Jeff MD said that perimeter is responsibility of MI5 or the Home Department in the UK, and body protection for the president is the Secret Service's responsibility. But then we also saw that when the president was moving from Chequers back to his residence in the UK, there was a problem with the hydraulics on Marine One, and it raised a lot of questions for us. Is there a
pre-flight check
that's making these kinds of screw ups?
Well, Marine One is very well maintained to start with, and I am sure that every single flight that aircraft makes is they go over that thing with a fine-tooth comb before anybody even gets into it. So for the hydraulics to have had a problem, that's the problem with conspiracies, is there's always enough plausible deniability built into them to say that yeah, this could have happened, but there's enough on the other side with all of the current events that are going on to say, yeah, no, that's bullshit.
Yeah, but see, again, I come back to the same thing. You had DC where Code Pink was in the restaurant with the vice president and the president. You had the UK incident happen. You had actually two incidents happen in the UK, and then now on Saturday you had the guy with the laser pointer who fired into Marine One and could have blinded the pilot with that. There's just too many things to call it a conspiracy theory anymore.
So there's another thing with that laser business. Okay.
Yeah.
The lasers that were used during 2020 riots, those were extremely powerful nanometer lasers that were used. They were using to blind cops. If the guy was pointing it at Marine One while it was in the air,
yeah,
it probably would not have blinded the pilot. It would have been reflected off of the windshield on the helicopter.
Okay.
So once again, I'm going back to this thing that there are messages that are being sent and people aren't picking up on it, because that would have been totally ineffective. I don't know what kind of laser it was. There was no information given about it. There wasn't the nanometer specs given on it, but I have one of the lasers that was actually built before the ban on green lasers was made long ago, and it's very powerful.
Okay.
So the one that I have, yeah, it probably could have done something, but if he had just the regular consumer grade laser off the shelf, it wouldn't have done much.
Okay. Well, the only information the Secret Service gave was that the guy who done it was shirtless. He was talking to himself, and he understood what he had done. I mean, they asked him, "Do you understand what you've done?" He said, "Yeah, I understand. I understand what could have happened," which makes us go, okay, conspiracy theory, real, lunatic. What was the story behind this? But my point in bringing this up, S2, is there have been too many incidents, one after another, that makes us go, what is going on now?
Like I said, there's messages being sent.
Yeah. And who understands them and who doesn't understand them? That's the question. Let's jump to the next story. Now, last week, in France, they had the Block Everything riots. and they ran block everything because they wanted the French government to recognize Palestine. Now, French government yesterday announced in the UN that we have recognized Palestine as a country. They've even named the embassy in Paris. In England, they've also done the same thing. They've changed the address of the embassy in Israel, Palestine to East Jerusalem, Palestine instead of Israel anymore. Now, the Milan riots that are going on, they're also block everything. The footage shows that they're violent mobs, and it's the exact same thing that happened in Paris. I'm gonna connect these two. This was started off as saying that this is for Palestine, and the amount of damage that's being done, the amount of protesting that's going on, I don't think this is about Palestine anymore. And
never has been.
Never has been. No, I mean that's always been the part where I've had the problem, is that it's not about Palestine. Let's go ahead and watch what Jim Ferguson gave us a video.
Oh, look, Patriot Front's on vacation.
Now, I'm going to jump back to this because 2 weeks ago in Paris, this was going on. And in Paris, they said we wanted the Macron government to recognize Palestine. But here's where the problem is. Macron had already announced that they were going to recognize Palestine. So what was the point of the block everything riots? Now, in Italy, you've got the same argument going that this is about Palestine. And Meloni has said that we're not going to recognize Palestine because we don't accept that as a state, and as long as Hamas exists. The level of destruction that's going on, the level of things that are going on, this is not just little riots. This is almost like what happened with the U.S. with BLM.
It's exactly what it is.
Self-generated destruction that throws your entire country into disarray, throws your entire country into problems, and you're trying to create a problem that does not really exist. So first question I've got for you, S2, is do you actually see a connection between the riots in Paris and the riots in Italy?
It's not just the two countries, it's the West in general. Okay. They are trying to destabilize the West. This is a globalist movement, okay?
Yep.
And the globalists have their hand in this, but also they're using the street communists in these countries to foment these types of events. They're trying to, so they don't like Meloni because she's not on board with the globalists either.
Right.
Macron, I think he's kind of being a little wishy-washy with it. I don't think he's full on board with it anymore. I think he was, but I think he's been doing things that the WEF and the IMF and all of those yahoos don't like. So that's probably why things are going a little milder in France than they are in Italy. But just like here in the United States, when you see these people on the streets out there screaming for Palestine, it was never about Palestine.
It was never about Palestine. S2? S2? Okay, I think S2's kicked off. He's been having trouble with this system. We had it during the pregame as well when we were talking. S2's system kept kicking off. I think he'll just jump back in once he's got his system back up and running again. I'm going to pick up where S2 left off. This was never about Palestine. Even what we saw at U.S. universities, it was never about Palestine. It was about creating a disruption level event where you literally, as a government, had to either take harsh action or S2, are you back?
I am back. I must be over the target because every time I start talking about powers that you don't like, they do something to my internet connection. So, without fail.
So I picked up where you left off with the protests in the U.S. not being about Palestine. I'm going to turn it back over to you, and you go ahead and continue, and I'll jump back in after you're done.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing here in the U.S. has never been about Palestine. We are in the middle of the street thugs and the elites trying to foment a communist takeover. I've said this time and time and time again. That's what this is all about. They switch their causes at will. Okay, and they do it on
Yep.
purpose because it's a destabilization technique, and this is what it is. And it's the same thing. Like I said, they don't like Maloney. She's not on board with the WEF. Here we go again. They're messing with my connection again. But any of the Western leaders out there that aren't on board, this is what they do. They create these destabilization events that they have to get control of. And the only way they're going to get control of this is they're going to have to tell their police that it's time to start knocking heads. You know, if they turn violent, it's time to start knocking heads, because they're not going to stop. The only thing communists understand is pain. And you have to show them pain, and consistently show them pain, just like you would have to do to a little unruly child.
Yeah,
because that's what they are. They're unruly children.
Yeah, but do you think, I'm going to pick up from where you left off, what they did in the U.S., I mean, if you look at BLM, if you look at what just recently happened at U.S. universities where I was when your connection dropped out, these are all disruption events. The entire goal is to create disruption. You're not going to achieve your goal. I mean, you're not going to bring communism to the U.S. That's not going to happen. You're not going to bring it to any other country that are doing it this way either. But aren't you pushing your governments to the point where they start using more force against their citizens? Start maybe, and I'll take the line that's been discussed a couple of times. Are you not trying to limit the free speech rights in certain countries by causing a disruption event in these countries?
That's one of the tactics that Antifa uses. That's their whole purpose. So anytime, if you've ever been to any one of these events where you've got patriots against Antifa, they've always got big ass bullhorns, and anytime that you've got patriots that are trying to talk, they shout you down and try to shut you up. They were doxing people. They were getting people canceled by calling their employers and having them fired, and basically trying to repress them into silence. And that's what they do. So you have to hit them back with the same thing that they are giving. Right.
But okay, I'm going to give you the example of Pakistan. Here we have the same problem. We've got call them globalists, call them Islamists, that every time something goes wrong here in Pakistan, they start these major protests. Major cities are shut down. Cars are set on fire. Buildings are set on fire. Windows are broken everywhere. Their goal is to force the police to take an aggressive position or take an aggressive action. And then they turn around and say, oh, victim complex, victim complex, victim complex. I am not clear from the point of view of what's happening in the US and in Europe right now, if it's the same strategy that's going on there that's been going on on our side of the world.
It's the same pattern. This is, I mean, you know as well as I do, intelligence is about pattern recognition. Yep. It's the same pattern over and over again. The motivation may be different, but it's the same pattern, and it's the same tactic. They want to goad the police into aggressive action. That's happened here. It's happened in every other country out there. It's even happening in England with the Muslims that are over there. Yeah. You know, they get attacked, and all of a sudden I'm the victim. Or they turn around and they attack somebody and they say, well, he called me a dirty Muslim, so I had to defend myself. I'm the victim. This is all about, this is a communist tactic. It's right out of the freaking playbook.
Okay. What do you think? Okay. There have been a lot of videos posted recently on X of British police officers or peace officers, let's call them peace officers, not police officers, going to people's homes and collecting their mobile phones because they either looked at a post, liked a post, or shared a post that someone found offensive. what's your take on that? Because I think that I really honestly I think you've now gotten to the point of Big Brother, where you looked at something you shouldn't have looked at. Give us your phone.
Basically, the English government has said, "Here, I'm bending over."
Yeah,
England's gone.
England's gone. I mean, I have a lot of affection for. I mean, this is going to sound really weird to a lot of people, but I have a lot of affection for what Tommy Robinson is trying to achieve in the UK, because England is for English people. It's not for the colonizers to come back and colonize Great Britain, because that's not what the intent of the UK was. But Keir Starmer himself, he is such a weak prime minister. I mean, literally such a weak prime minister, that when Donald Trump was in the UK, a reporter stood up and said, well, America is a Christian country, and President Trump, you're a great example of Christianity for the Americans. Mr. Prime Minister, is England a Christian country? And he stumbled through his answer.
Gee, you think maybe he's hanging out with John Brennan?
I think he's hanging out with the wrong crowd. That much is for sure. Muslim Brotherhood's made.
I think the Muslim Brotherhood's been in bed with England since World War II, so that's no surprise.
But I listened to his response, and he's, well, I'm a Christian and I go to church, but we're very proud of our ability to recognize people's right to practice their faiths in our country. You have the right to practice your faith in every country, but it doesn't change what your nation's religious beliefs are, what your nation's values are. England has been. I remember I lived in England for 3 years. After I moved to Pakistan, I moved to England for 3 years for certain work. When I moved there, I literally said England's being colonized. And this is probably around 2002, 2003. At that point, I could see the colonization going on, where all the colonies were moving to the UK and colonizing the UK, where you had Pakistanis, you had Indians, you had Sri Lankans that had moved into England, and they had taken control of different areas of England. I mean, Manchester and Birmingham are huge Muslim populations now.
Well, they've done it here too. With Minnesota, we have Dearborn, Michigan, and there are other there are other big spots around. I mean, hell, even the mayor in Dearborn, Michigan is telling Americans to get out if you don't like what we're naming your streets.
I hit that one. When I saw that video, I hit that one, because the mayor is Lebanese, and the guy spoke about the whole issue with that video was that they wanted to rename a street in Dearborn they wanted to name it after a terrorist. Exactly, name it after a terrorist. And the guy stood up and said, well, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, and the mayor jumped on him. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. You're sitting in America. You're not sitting in Lebanon and honoring one of your own, terrorists there, where Hezbollah has control. You're talking about in the United States. It's like asking someone in New York City to name a street Osama bin Laden Way or al-Jolani Way. I mean, that's unheard of. That is not something you do in a country you live in. And I'm one of those people that says either you assimilate or you move back to the country you came from.
I say we just send them back, give them a one-way plane ticket.
Well, if you remember last week or the week before last, Kristi Noem signed a order on the Syrians for all the people that were on temporary visas in the U.S., refugee status in the U.S. She turned around and said, well, Syria's stable now. Go home.
Yep.
And I think that should be done with everybody. I mean, the Afghanis, the number of Afghanis that have moved into the U.S. on quote unquote refugee status and have turned into lobbyists for the Taliban, you need to send them back. And if they're so proud of the Taliban, go live under the Taliban.
Agreed.
But for me, and I'm tying these things together because when you look at France, when you look at England, when you look at what's going on in Italy right now, what happened in the U.S. on college campuses, you're seeing a mass level disruption event going on across the entire West. And that same thing is happening in Middle Eastern countries as well, where you are having Islamists, terrorists, extremists protesting on the streets. Like in Pakistan, we have Balochis who are pro-Baloch Liberation Army, which is a terrorist organization, not just by Pakistan standards, but Donald Trump also just a few months ago declared them a terrorist organization, a foreign terrorist organization in the US as well. You have to look at it from the point of view is the entire world's being destabilized, and being destabilized from a level where every country is being hit with either terrorism, extremism, communism, globalism. Everyone is being hit based on whatever culture they operate under. And the problem that we're seeing, like if I take Pakistan as an example, we have terrorists protesting in the streets. We have terrorists attacking military bases here in Pakistan. And then we have the government going, well, maybe we should sit down and negotiate with them. And my fear is that at some point, the US is going to turn around and say, maybe we should sit down and negotiate and figure out who we can deal with and who we can't deal with. And that's where my fear is coming from, because with Trump in office, you have a strong leader who is able to, turn around and say, no, I'm not going to tolerate this. Cut off the funding to the universities. No more federal funding to them. But what would have happened if this was a Democratic president?
It would have continued on just like it did under Biden. We dodged a serious bullet.
Yeah.
We were given a reprieve for a period of time to get our country straightened out. And I think the biggest key to all of this, our country was founded by founders who knew that you had to have a morally upright people in order to keep it. That was why the Constitution was written, and written the way it was. We have lost our way in this country because we have basically been, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say infiltrate. I don't want to say infiltrated. I want to use the words that we have been turned into a bunch of mutts because of all of the breeding practices, the normalization of things that are immoral, and we have to correct those things or nothing is going to change. We're going to live this way for the rest of our lives. Yeah. I'm not going to.
No, there's a wave now in the US where people are now starting to step up and say, no, we're not tolerating this anymore.
Charlie Kirk's assassination was the moment that they did not want. So we had a galvanizing moment with 9/11 where it brought the entire country together. Didn't care what party you belonged to, any of that. It was a galvanizing moment. And they thought that they would be able to send a message by killing Charlie Kirk to say, you're going to shut up now or else. It had the opposite effect. This was our 9/11 2.0.
Yeah. I keep hearing that, and I keep believing that as well, because we looked at what happened after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and whatever they were expecting to happen went the opposite direction. You thought people would shut up because you killed Charlie. You instead saw a revival of Christian values that swept across the US. And it's good to see America go back to where it was. I grew up in that America. I mean, the US that exists today, I don't even recognize, because the US I grew up in was a Christian country. People went to church on Sundays. People went to church on Wednesdays. And that's not the America that exists now. And I agree with you. It's almost like the culture war has won, and they have tried to change the fabric of what America is. And as a result, we're seeing other countries in the West now being attacked on the same level so that they can force the culture to change.
No, they can try to force anything all they want to. It's not going to work here. It's not going to work here.
Let's hope it doesn't, because I still love the America that I grew up in, and I don't want to see this America. Because seeing the transgenders and all the gays and everything going on in the US and being accepted as being a normal practice, that's not the America I grew up in.
Nope. And if you think about it, I'm going to throw another conspiracy theory out there. So we had the replacement conspiracy that was going on, and had they
Yeah,
succeeded with their depopulation agenda, they would have killed off the good portion of people that'll be around to tell the story to the young people. They wanted to bring all of these military aged young people into this country so that they could say, this is the way we really are, not the way you've been told.
yeah,
And
yeah. And that's actually,
that changes the country from top to
I
bottom.
I actually read a paper back about 2 years ago that was written by a foreign government of how they could use immigration as a declaration of war in another country. And it's really interesting to look at how they've been able to do that, where I mean, the US has been flooded with so many foreigners. The West has been flooded with so many foreigners that the American culture, the Western culture, the Western values are gone. And you turn around, you start going, wow, this is what America was, and this is where what we've turned into. And I keep wondering, when is it going to reverse? When's it going to reverse? When's it going to reverse? I agree with you that Charlie Kirk was the moment when America went, wait a minute, we're going the wrong way. And everything swung right then and there.
Yep.
So I'm going to jump to the next story. I'm going to bring you back to Pakistan, and this is something that's very it bugs me, because I listen to human rights activists talk about how terrorists, when you hit a terrorist, when the military hits a terrorist camp, you hit a lot of civilians. The post I did today is just yesterday, day before yesterday, the Pakistan Army carried out a airstrike in the Tira Valley. That's right in the border area, right next to Afghanistan. And there were some civilians killed in the airstrike. And immediately we heard human rights organizations stand up and start screaming and going, oh, you killed civilians, this is a war crime. The problem with saying that's a war crime is, and then you're going to see this in the next two videos that we show you, the terrorists are literally either sitting right in the middle of a city or a village and doing their terrorist activities, so you cannot hit them without hitting a civilian, or they are surrounding themselves with civilians at their events to make sure that if you were to strike, you would end up killing civilians at the same time. So let me show you this video. This is an IED camp that was in the Fatah region. I just want you to have a look at this and see what they're building. You see the yellow containers?
Oh,
and
yeah.
They're filling up with explosives. This camp was hit yesterday. Let the video finish, and I'll explain it to you guys.
That's a lot of bombs.
That's a lot of bombs. Yeah, that village was hit yesterday by the Pakistan Air Force. They did a drone strike on that area. That factory itself blew up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does the Pakistani military not have their own version of special forces that they could go in there to surgically remove these people?
We do, but see, the problem is too, because I've worked with the special forces team in Pakistan. The problem that we have is that if, for example, this is the location where the terror camp is, and it's right here, all of this is civilian population. So if you try and insert, when you're trying to exfil out, you've got terrorists sitting on the perimeter, and they detonate themselves. So even if you do everything in your power not to hit a civilian, they take them out. The number of drones that they have used themselves, that the TTP has used themselves, dropped them on houses, and then turned around and said, oh, that was the Pakistan Army. That wasn't us, that was the Pakistan Army. Even though it was in your propaganda videos. We saw your propaganda videos where you dropped the drone, the munition from the drone yourself, and then you turn around and blame the Pakistan Army for it. The problem we have on this side of the world is you have so many stupid people that listen to the terrorists and say, oh, well, they killed civilians. when that suicide bomber comes into your city and blows himself up, he's killing your civilians as well. The human rights activists don't see that explosion as being an act of war or an act of terrorism. But if the army goes in and strikes a terror camp and a few civilians are killed in the process, well, that's a war crime. And my problem with this, the video that I showed you, that IED camp detonated itself. And I'm always happy when terrorists blow themselves up. That IED camp blew itself up.
Bomb makers always do, but they can only do it once. That's the beauty of it.
But they do so much damage in the process that it's worth it. All 15 terrorists that were working inside that camp died in the explosion, but 7 civilians were killed. 7 civilians were killed. Now, what happened in Pakistan? Our provincial assembly, what would be the equivalent of your state assemblies, the provincial assembly turned around and said it is the fault of the army. They're the ones that killed all these people. We're going to start an inquiry against the military. For me, that makes me go, whose side are you on? Those were terrorists that died. They blew themselves up. They killed 7 civilians. That was their mistake. And you're blaming our military for that.
And you know what? 6 months from now, you'll never hear another word about it. It's all theater.
It is. It's all theater.
Governments are all theater.
Well, we have a different problem in Pakistan. I mean, today, I don't know if you saw it in our Guardian group, the province right next door to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is the province that's right next door to Afghanistan. The province next door to us is Punjab. Punjab carried out a mass arrest, 90 terrorists they caught, al-Qaeda, Islamic State, TTP. That will not happen in this province because this province has Imran Khan's government, and Imran Khan was pro-Taliban, pro-TTP. His government has literally, in the KP province, has turned around and said, no, we will not allow kinetic operations from the military in the province. We don't care if the terrorists spread throughout the entire province. We don't care. But there will not be military kinetic operations. And the rest of Pakistan, you have kinetic operations running. You have intelligence operations running where terrorists are scooped up, terrorists are killed. In the KP province of Pakistan, it's not allowed. And the government of KP will not allow it because they say, no, the Taliban are just, what was the phrase they used? Disgruntled brothers. That's what they called them. They're just disgruntled brothers. And we need to sit down and talk to them because that's the way to solve it. Back in 2002, the government of Pakistan was forced into negotiating with the TTP. Haqqani was the mediator. Sirajuddin Haqqani was the mediator. And I mean, what a great mediator you could have. At the end of 2002, the TTP walked away from the negotiation table and said, we're going to war with Pakistan. And the KP province said, oh, okay, how can we facilitate you? How can we help you? And we literally turned around and went, are you guys still part of Pakistan or have you become part of Afghanistan? This is where for a Pakistani and for anyone outside the country watching what's going on in Pakistan, the biggest problem in Pakistan is that we don't have a stable government. And by stable government, I mean we don't have a real government like you have in the US, where you actually put American values and American needs before the terrorists. What America's been able to do with Antifa, what it's been able to do with the different groups that operate and try and cause disrest in the US, that would never happen with Pakistan, because here you have every government, every politician is in bed someplace with the terrorists.
You know the good guys and you know the bad guys too.
Yeah, and here you don't. Here it's all bad guys. It's all bad guys here. But let's jump on to the next video. And the reason I'm going to show you this video is I want you to see how the terrorists put these. Notice the kids in the video around the terrorists. Now, how does the military operate with that kind of environment around them?
Oh, those kids are at that camp because they're being indoctrinated.
It's not just being indoctrinated. Because I asked about this video. I asked a couple of my sources about this video. Those kids have been put around these terrorists and intermingled in with the terrorists so that they cannot be hit by the military. And this was told to me by a commander. This was told to me by a commander.
But the kids are 3 feet tall, dude. The other guys are pretty tall. Headshots for all.
Yeah, well, the problem is that a lot of those guys are strapped with suicide vests. A lot of those guys are strapped with suicide vests, and it's very odd to us.
Like I said, headshots for all. That'll stop it.
See, that's the problem, K2, S2, that if you send my team in, yeah, we're taking headshots. We're going to put snipers out there. We're going to take headshots. We're going to put them all down. But the problem is that with Pakistan's military, even our own military is divided. We still have people in uniform that are pro-Taliban and anti-Taliban. And the pro-Taliban side sometimes gets a little bit more power. And it becomes very difficult to run kinetic operations. Again, Pakistan has so many issues that if I were to do an entire show on Pakistan, I still couldn't explain everything that goes on in this country.
It's still the same problem that we have here in the United States. We have a divided military here. We have a divided people here. We have people that are using innocence as their shields. It's the same problem. It's just a different set of cultural circumstances.
Yeah, but here the problem is that the indoctrination starts at probably 7, 8 years old, where certain people buy into the indoctrination at 7, 8 years old, and by the time they turn 15, 16, they are just rabid animals, and those people then end up getting, either they end up in a terror camp or they end up getting a visa and going abroad saying, oh, I want to go get an education. And they bring that mentality with them to the country they go to for an education.
Let me address a comment in the chat here.
Yeah.
NMR on YouTube. We've already covered that subject. You're going to have to rewatch the episode if you want to see what we said about the New York Telecom terrorist plot.
Yeah, we did a long information on that. But this goes back to what we were talking about with the communism in the West. The mentality that exists between both regions. Our countries on the Middle East side are being affected by extremism, and the countries in the West are being affected by communism. And both of them have the same agenda: collapse the government, take it over, and turn it into what you want it to be.
Sounds like a worldwide caliphate to me.
It's much worse. It's much worse because the caliphate in the Muslim world you cannot achieve, because the requirements of the caliphate you cannot achieve. It just will not happen. Because if we look at Afghanistan, you talk about Sharia law in Afghanistan. To have Sharia law, you need to provide housing, jobs, education. That all needs to be provided by the government. And if you can't do that, you cannot have Sharia law. And that's the part that the extremists don't understand, is that you need to fulfill certain requirements to get there. And they just go, oh, Sharia law, we want Sharia law. And that's not how it goes.
They don't even understand their own requirements.
No, because they haven't been taught the requirements. I look at it this way. You know how a new person converts to Christianity and they don't know all the values of Christianity, and they start talking about how Christianity is supposed to operate without understanding the Bible and the teachings of the gospel. It's the same thing with these lunatic Muslims. They have been taught certain things, certain phrases, certain verses from the Quran, but those things are not what the Quran actually teaches. And when you listen to them, I spend a lot of time listening to these guys. I sit in the little meetings with them and go, what kind of drugs are you smoking? because that's not what our book teaches. Whatever you're spewing out of your mouth, that's not what our book teaches. And you keep telling me that this is what should happen and this is what should happen. That's not what the Quran teaches. This is not how it operates. Whatever you're saying is wrong. And I relate it back to the guy who just became a Christian and starts talking about the gospel without understanding the gospel.
We got a lot of that too.
Yeah, we do. I'm going to move along. Let's remind everybody again, if you are not a member of our survival dispatch team, we'd love it if you sign up. Even a free account is great. You'll get all the notices and updates from survival dispatch on what we're doing every day. If you become a paid member, you will get access to S2. Actually, why don't you run through all the things you get as a paid member?
I don't know, because I'm not a paid member.
Oh.
I'm a lifetime member.
Okay. As a paid member,
I'm a founding member.
Okay. All right. Okay. As a paid member, what you get is at $7.99 a month, $74.99 a year. You get 2.5 months free. You get enrolled in our survival dispatch emergency system, the S10 system, which means you get notified if something were to happen in the U.S., a disaster or calamitous event were to happen. You would be notified via message through the S10 system. You get an invite to the very high traffic private signal chat. You get the entire library of 37 e-mags for $307 that normally sells at $370, $10 per magazine. You get all those for free. You get the sources for all of our situation reports that we put up every day. They're part of what the show, what our show is based on. You get access to a lot of information from what we do, and it's well worth it if you join. Even as a free member, it helps us out from the point that you get updates on a regular basis of what's going on with survival dispatch. There's a lot of things going on. I'm going to pitch in here. On Friday, we have got John Rosmondo coming on. John Rosmondo is one of the leading experts on Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S. He'll be joining us for...
Who is this?
John Rosmondo.
Oh, I wish we could have John Guandolo on with him.
I don't know if Guandalo will come on. Do you know Guandalo?
I was talking to him, and I talk to him every once in a while. I used to have his phone number, but that's been a long time ago. And he kind of dropped off when the SPLC, he ran a website called Understanding the Threat, and the SPLC had it designated as a hate website. Okay. So he dropped that out. Now I think it's just johnguandolo.com.
Okay.
But I don't know. I could see if I could ask him.
Yeah, see if you can ask him, because John's going to join us. He's one of the foremost experts on Muslim Brotherhood. Good friend of mine. He's part of a team that we work with on a different level. He is well tied in on what Muslim Brotherhood has been able to achieve in the U.S. A lot of infiltration they've done in the State Department. He knows one by one who they are. It's like last night when we talked about the top lobbyist of the Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S. marrying the Free Syrian Army liaison in the State Department, and using their influence to push that way. He'll be on Friday with us. We're not sure if we're going to have him for an hour or for 2 hours, but I want to make sure that I put that plug in there. We'll put that into the situation report starting from tomorrow. There's a question in there. If al-Qaeda sees Khalid warning of attacks and methods of attack, they would spread fake information in their camps. Yeah, no. They can spread whatever kind of information they want to spread. Their fighters are already in the U.S. Whatever they say in their camps, we have already gleaned all the information we need to glean. What's left to glean, we will get out of them. That's not something they can hide from us now. We're not worried about what al-Qaeda says anymore. Going back, Friday we'll have John on. He'll be talking about Muslim Brotherhood, and he'll go into a lot of detail about how Muslim Brotherhood has been able to infiltrate the U.S. government. If you remember, back in the first Trump administration, they wanted to declare Muslim Brotherhood. They wanted to ban Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S. That wasn't achieved. Now they're trying to do it again, and we're hoping that now they are able to successfully get them banned, because a lot of the influence of the extremist Muslims will disappear. What we're seeing in England is Muslim Brotherhood being able to achieve what they've done in England with the Muslimization of the British people. That's what we want to see happen in the U.S., where it stops and they're not able to achieve what they've been able to achieve thus far. Hello.
Yep.
Stu, are you there? Yeah.
Yep.
I got a message on my screen saying that I'd lost audio. That's why I went
that
hello.
happens.
Okay. We'll jump to the hero of the day. This is U.S. Navy SEAL Mike Day. He survived being shot 27 times by al-Qaeda in different parts of the body. He was also hit by a grenade. Despite all of his injuries, he was able to kill all 4 of the al-Qaeda attackers and walked away without any help. Spent the next 21 years serving in the U.S. Navy, retired in 2010, and then gave the rest of his life to working with wounded warriors. And Mike Day passed away in March of 2023, and this is our hero of the day. We like the fact that we're now remembering how how many heroes have given their lives to defend the freedoms and the rights that Americans have today. So this is our hero of the day.
Sounds like he had a similar experience of John Michael Chapman.
Yeah, it does. It does. S2, I'm going to throw up the conflicted question.
Okay.
And we'll wrap up for the day.
Okay. All right, here we go. Before I do this, once again, everybody hit the like button or the thumbs up button. Please leave a comment so it drives the algorithm for further audience engagement. And here we go. You are at a business convention 1,200 miles away from your family when an EMP goes off and stops the entire civilization in its tracks. None of the means of communication or transportation work, and the banking system and all of the comforts of modern civilization are broken, setting the entire country back hundreds of years. Infrastructure won't be fixed anytime soon, and you aren't ready for this. You have $300 in your pocket and a few hours before all shelves are empty. Would you stay local or would you head for home? Whatever your decision, what would you buy with the money in your pocket and why? Go ahead, Khalid. You're first.
Okay. $300. I would start heading for home, because if the world is collapsing, I'm not going to stick around where I am. It just makes no sense for me to stay there. So I would use that $300 to buy a little bit of food here and there, and put gas in the car and head for home, because there's no way I'm going to stick around when the civilization's at a point of collapse. S2?
Your car's not working because there was an EMP.
Oh, I didn't see the EMP part. I didn't see the EMP. You're basically stuck where you got to go. You can't even head for home, because 1,200 miles back to home is a long hike, and there's no way you're doing that as a normal human being.
I'm buying a bicycle.
Yeah.
Buying a bicycle and food.
No, I'd be looking for a place to live with $300, and I'd be looking for a place to live and a job someplace to earn more money, because there's no way after an EMP there's no way you're gonna move anywhere. I didn't even see that EMP part of it.
No, I'm buying a bicycle. That's what I'm doing. It's a form of transportation. It'll get me somewhere out of the city. It'll get me away from all of the lunacy that would be going on. And yeah, it would take me a while to get back home, but I'm heading home.
Wow. How long do you think it would take for you to bike 1,200 miles?
I don't know. Depends on the terrain. But
Yeah,
I can go. But all the cars that are stopped on the highways and everything that would impede you from going home with conventional transportation, you can get around it with a bicycle.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I didn't even think about the bicycle. I missed the EMP part in there. I thought, okay, well, civilization's ending. You're 1,200 miles away. Go home.
Yeah, your car's screwed. Either that, or
Oh,
I
yeah.
could find me a horse. A horse would be better.
Wow. Now that's an idea. A horse would actually be a lot better. A horse would actually be a lot better. Okay, so that's the end of our episode for tonight. Please go visit survivaldispatch.news, get a free account, sign up for the free account so you get updates. We'll be back tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock with Chris and Randy. We'll continue the Long War episode series. Tomorrow is the Black Market Rises, Barter Economy, and Criminal Networks Expanding, which should make for a very interesting episode. Until then, like, share, comment, and we'll see you tomorrow night. And God bless America.
Hoorah.
This is what I call 9 rules from Chris Pratt, Generation Award winner. Number 1, breathe. If you don't, you'll suffocate. Number 2, you have a soul. Be careful with it. Number 3, don't be a turd. If you're strong, be a protector, and if you're smart, be a humble influencer. Strength and intelligence can be weapons, and do not wield them against the weak. That makes you a bully. Be bigger than that. Number 4, when giving a dog medicine, put the medicine in a little piece of hamburger, they won't even know they're eating medicine. Number 5, doesn't matter what it is, earn it. A good deed, reach out to someone in pain, be of service, it feels good and it's good for your soul. Number 6, God is real. God loves you. God wants the best for you. Believe that. I do. Number 7, if you have to poop at a party, but you're embarrassed because you're going to stink up the bathroom, just do what I do. Lock the door. Sit down. Get all the pee out first. Okay? And then once all the pee's done, poop, flush. Boom. You minimize the amount of time that the poop is touching the air. Because if you poop first, it takes you longer to pee, and then you're peeing on top of it, stirring it up. The poop particles create a cloud, goes out, and then everyone in the party will know that you pooped. Just trust me, it's science. Number 8, learn to pray. It's easy, and it's so good for your soul. And finally, number 9, nobody is perfect. People are going to tell you you're perfect just the way you are. You're not. You are imperfect. You always will be, but there is a powerful force that designed you that way. And if you're willing to accept that, you will have grace. And grace is a gift. And like the freedom that we enjoy in this country, that grace was paid for with somebody else's blood. Do not forget it. Don't take it for granted. God bless you. Please get home safely. Thank you.